Most bankers aren't ready to help you until after their third cup of coffee. But with Central National Bank's after-hours service, you don't have to wait for the bank lobby to open to get help. You can contact us from 6 to 8:30 in the morning or from 5 to 10 in the evening, and we'll connect you to a real, live, local person who can answer questions and fix problems 7 days a week. Bank different. Bank Central. Central National Bank. Member FDIC.
This is a Rogue Media Network podcast.
Hello, baseball fans, and welcome to this episode of A Visit to the Mound. I'm Lark Smith, and he is
Stan Huff.
As we record this edition of A Visit to the Mound, the College World Series about to get underway in Omaha, Nebraska. After the regionals and super regionals, it has come down basically to an ACC versus SEC challenge. It's 4 teams from the Atlantic Coast Conference: Virginia, North Carolina, Florida State, and North Carolina State, and 4 teams from the Southeastern Conference: Texas A&M, Tennessee, Kentucky, and Florida have qualified for the event. So we thought we would take this opportunity to talk about the teams involved and some of the players to focus on while we watch this year's event. Stan, I want to start off with the Florida Gators. They are the only team of the 8 that was not among the top 16 seeds. They were the number 3 seed at Stillwater and made quick work of the Cowboys in Nebraska before that knockdown, drag-out super regional series they had at Clemson. They made it to the championship series last year, losing in 3 games to LSU. They have possibly the best two-way player in college baseball in Jack Caglianone. To me, they look like the dark horse to take this thing.
Well, you know, they've been to Omaha 9 times under Kevin O'Sullivan.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and they've been there 14 times as well, and they got an at-large bid with a 28-27 record.
Yeah, apparently they had a bad record in the SEC. They didn't do well in the conference.
It didn't look like that. You know, and then they went and beat Clemson in a 13-hour game, 11-10. So doesn't say much about pitching. So
when you get to that third game, pitching is a little thin.
Well, I don't know. I gotta. You're in each game is each game. So I understand. Anyway. Well, they had Jack Caglianone. Is hit 33 home runs this year, and he's 1 home run shy of the record of tying the record. And wow, the guy can play.
Yeah, second straight year he's been named the perfect game two-way player of the year unanimously, 2 years in a row.
Well,
he's what we know. He's Jason Jennings.
He's got that juice in his bat, that's for sure.
Yeah, and he pitches pretty good too.
So that's a plus. So anyway, so I guess you got to give Florida credit. They're in there, so we'll see how it goes.
Well, who did they take on in the first round? Florida takes on Texas A&M in the first round. Matter of fact, they're the final game of the 4 games that start the series.
Okay. Well, I'm going to take A&M on that one. Our next team is the North Carolina State.
Mm-hmm.
So North Carolina State, initially they had a lot of injuries and sickness, okay?
Mm-hmm.
They got off to a rough start this season. So they're led by Elliott Avent, and let's see, they've you got to give them credit. They've come from behind 16 times to win this season. So they're capable of finishing strong. So that's got to be considered there, you know.
Mm-hmm.
They beat Georgia 18-1 game 1, and they got
blown out.
Georgia
game
came
2.
back. Yeah, game 2 was a complete opposite.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they came back in that last game and won it. So they got a guy, Alec McCarowitz. He's he got 22 home runs, 80 RBIs. He's hitting 380, but that's only one guy in the lineup.
Yeah,
so,
but what I saw during the super regionals, everybody in that lineup was hitting right now. And I know it's all about pitching, but their hitting right now is one of the strongest staffs I've seen of the 8 that are there.
Well, that makes for a good game.
That's
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they'll be interesting to watch as well. So I guess the next one we got is Kentucky.
Now that's who North Carolina State will play on Saturday at 1:00.
Okay, so this is their first trip to the World Series ever.
Yes.
So
It's a basketball school.
it basketball, and then it's a basketball school, and after that, it's a basketball school. So this is a big deal for Kentucky.
Yeah,
Now,
they're the number 2 seed overall to start with.
well, their pitching has been strong, so they're hot right now. So who knows how this is going to fly? Um,
Yeah, if you're going on pitching, they look like a team that's going to be very hard to beat in Omaha.
That's true. That's true. And let's see here. Let's see. Nolan McCarthy had a game-winning super slide into home plate, I guess, to beat Oregon State and click their ticket to the World Series too.
Mhm.
So it looks like these guys are playing aggressive with strong pitching. Who knows what's going to happen? They're 5-0 coming into this thing.
Well, I understand that, but when you look at the teams they had in their regional at home, they played Western Michigan, Illinois, and Indiana State. Those aren't necessarily real strong baseball schools.
Well, it didn't matter. They're on an upswing.
And
They're
then-
on a trend. They're trending up. So we'll see how that works out. Who are they playing?
They're playing Oregon State they're playing North Carolina State in the
North
first
Carolina
round.
State. Okay. All right. Let's go to Virginia.
The
Virginia-
Cavaliers.
The Cavaliers. Well, here's an interesting stat. If they score first, they're 29-5. So if they don't score first, you might as well go turn the TV off
Yeah.
and go get some potato chips
Yeah,
or something.
unless of course you're a North Carolina fan, because that's who they play on Friday at 1:00. They are the opener of the College World Series.
That's right. That's right. The first time they've been there in 15 years. So they have the second highest batting average as hitters at 336 for the season. And they scored 15 of their 17 runs in the Super Regional over Kansas State with 2 outs.
Mm-hmm.
So that's to be noted. They don't give up.
Right.
They stay in there pretty good offensively. So just depends on how well their pitching does. But anyway, let's see if they can score first. So we got, let's see, Florida State is next. Their offense is strong. This is their 24th time to the World Series. And they, let's see, they blew out UConn in their first super regional, I believe. And
Yeah.
they got a pretty good player in this, James Tibbs. He's tied for the second most RBIs in the nation with 94. And let me think here. He had a pretty strong performance against Florida State. We hit 3 home runs in one regional game there to send them to Omaha there.
I found it interesting in studying up for this that Florida State is the team there this year that has the most appearances at the College World Series. But they're only 6 or 8 down the pecking order as the number of visits to the College World Series. When you look at Southern Cal, Texas, Miami, teams like that aren't there now. What has happened, especially out in California? Now, I know the Pac-12 is dissolved.
Right.
But why is Southern Cal and UCLA and Cal Irvine, why are they not as competitive as they've been in the past?
To me, it comes down to pitching and how well they're pitching at that time. So if you're on an upswing like that, you can pretty much do the best.
Yeah. But does it also have something to do with the transfer portal, NIL facilities? Because
that's a good question.
I've been out to California with Baylor many years ago, and the facilities back then were very subpar compared to the Big 12 at the time. The Big 12's been improving their facilities. SEC's always been improving their facilities.
Well, this is the first time the NIL and that other stuff, the transfer portal has come about. So that might be a pretty significant play in this deal.
But I just found it interesting that Florida State, and like I say, the most visits of anybody there this particular season, but they're like 7 or 8 down the pecking order of the number of times the team has visited the College World Series.
Yeah, I agree with that.
They get the Friday 6:00 game against probably the team that everybody expects to win it, and that's Tennessee.
Right. Well, our next team we need to make a note about is North Carolina.
Mm-hmm.
Well, they struggled on the road this year. They were 10-11 on the road, but they were 37-3 at home in Chapel Hill. They're not playing at home,
No, they're not.
so we'll have to see right now. It's up to how well they pitch it right there, and they got one guy named Vance Honeycutt that's pretty much did pretty good in the super regional. So if he stays hot and the pitching comes around, if obviously they're not a good road team, but if he stays hot, other guys follow him up and in the lineup and they get the pitching, they should be there for a while.
You got to wonder when a team does not do well on the road, are they cutting up in the hotel? What seems to be the problem with
If
playing on the road? I
they
mean,
need to check curfew.
do you need to do a bed check, do you?
Bed check, curfew, maybe 2 in one night. Find out who's really there and who isn't.
There you go.
I don't know. It's that's a good question. It's completely the opposite on the road. They are doing well at home, 37-3, and then 10-11 on the road. They just you almost think, what's the problem here?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
got to figure that out.
I don't know. Do they have a young team?
I can't tell you. I'm not sure what their age is.
I can't either as well, but they do have some pretty good players on that team. Anyway, all right, North Carolina. Next up is Texas A&M.
I think the Aggies have some problems simply because of two players that they lost during the Super Regional. They lost their one of their outstanding outfielders, Braden Montgomery. He's a first-team All-American that's hitting about 322 in their lineup. They lost him. They also lost one of their pitchers, the left-hander Sadeo. So they're all they're aching.
Well,
whether or not they can overcome those injuries remains to be seen.
Well, their strength's been in their pitching and their hitting, so they've been pretty solid either way. They're 40-3 at home. They only lost 3 times this year at home. And
40-3 at home. That's 46 games at home.
Well,
out of a 56-game schedule, they only played on the road 10 times.
Well, yeah, they. That's what it says. I'm just going on what they're saying. I knew that. I watched them a few times at home, and they did win those games. Mm-hmm. So they got a catcher named Appel.
Yeah, very good catcher.
Pretty good.
Yeah, Jackson Appel.
Definitely, and their overall team ERA is 3.94. That's a little bit high, but look what they've done. They're 49-13, and they only lost 3 games in 40 tries at home.
Mm-hmm.
So they like playing at home.
Yeah, they do, but they're not going. They're going to be in Omaha and not College Station.
Well, that's another. It just depends on how well these guys take this situation seriously.
Now, their coach Jim Schlossnagle has been there before with TCU.
With TCU,
so he knows the ropes around Omaha and might be able to finagle something. I mean, I'm rooting for them. But
me too.
I just think they have a tough road to hoe here with those injuries.
Injuries do play a significant part in it when you're having to mix and match. Actually, I think their second baseman was injured, and the backup guy hits a home run that wins the ball game.
Yeah.
So, all right. So you got everybody's picking each other up. So you got to give some credit to that situation.
Yeah. I mean, that team depth is sometimes overlooked. Team depth, team chemistry, I think many times is overlooked.
Yeah, guys that want to get in there, they're itching to play. I'm going to show them what I can do, and they go in there and do it.
Yeah.
So that's a quality kid right there that does that.
Yep.
Okay, let's move on up to Tennessee now. 55-12. At one point A&M was number 1.
Right.
Then they lost about 6 games in a row and dropped them down, but Tennessee kept winning.
Yes, they did.
And they ended up with a record of 55-12.
Yeah.
Now that's strong. That's pretty strong. That's stronger than 9 rows of garlic.
Yeah. Their head coach has been building that program over the last few years. He's had them at the College World Series year in and year out, just Hasn't necessarily got them over the top yet, but this may be the year that they go over the top.
Well, they got a junior second baseman named Christian Moore that, he had 32 home runs this year, and that pretty much is a single season record for Tennessee. Well, there's 8 other Vol players that had double-digit home runs as well, so they like practicing on the other side of the fence, that's for sure. So that really takes the pressure off a pitcher when these guys are jacking these home runs left and right, particularly with multiple men on base. So it's that's a testament to their strength of their team. Their pitching was good, and their hitting was outstanding.
Yeah,
so
you mentioned their second baseman Christian Moore, but their first baseman Blake Burke, first team All-American. He's hitting .376. He's got 19 home runs on the year. Picked up 56 RBIs. So the right side of the infield is carrying the load at the plate for him.
Well, that's okay as long as the load is being carried.
Yes,
right?
that's right.
So you got this is going to be an interesting World Series, to say the least. Particularly in these run-up games that they're going to be playing here, starting tomorrow.
Yeah, as we record this on Thursday, they start Friday. First game's going to be 1 o'clock on Friday. That's North Carolina versus Virginia. The game at 6 o'clock, that is Tennessee versus Florida State. Then you go to Saturday, where the 1 o'clock game is Kentucky versus North Carolina. And then the final game of the first round is Florida and Texas A&M playing Saturday at 6 o'clock.
That's right. This is going to be – I'll be watching the College World Series as it gets to it.
Yep, I hardly ever miss it. One of these days I'm going to go to Omaha to take it in at TD Ameritrade or whatever they're calling that downtown field now. I got a chance to go there.
That's it.
I went there in 2005 with Baylor at the old Rosenblatt Stadium. That was a lot of fun.
When I was coaching with the Rangers, we played the Omaha Royals up there in Rosenblatt.
Did you?
The biggest rat I ever saw was running through the dugout. It looked like a small cat. And I said, what is that? And the guy says, we need to get out of here. This thing is infested.
Well, it was right next door to the Henry Dorley Zoo, which is right on top of the bluff next to the Missouri River. So I can see where, a muskrat.
I can tell you one thing. If you go to Omaha, go to the Henry Dorley Zoo. That is one of the best zoos I've ever been to in my life. It is unbelievable. When we go there, I went to the zoo maybe 3 or 4 times. Yeah. Definitely. That was a wonderful place to go. It was right there by the Rosenblatt, so it's just walking distance from the ballpark.
Yeah, well, that's the go-to whenever you're in Omaha. You go to the College World Series, you go to the Henry Dorley Zoo, and you go to Zestos.
That's right. So, and just remember one thing: if you ever go by old Rosenblatt, be careful, because you might see a rat running around that escaped from the Henry Dorley Zoo.
Some of your stories, I tell you. That is the time for this episode of A Visit to the Mound. If you have any questions or comments, anything you would like for us to cover, we'd be more than happy to hear from you. You can follow us on Instagram and Facebook at A Visit to the Mound, or on our website at avisittothemound.com. Make sure you like, subscribe, and review this podcast, and be listening the next time we make a visit to the mound.
This has been a Rogue Media Network production.